Welcome to Let the Quran Speak. I'm Sophia, your host. In studio with us today is Dr. Naeema Degani. She's a doctor affiliated with the International Development and Relief Foundation, a Canadian charity that provides humanitarian aid and sustainable development programs around the world. Dr. Degani recently did some work in rural Pakistan, so we will speak with her about her experiences as a doctor offering treatment and counseling in a developing country. Dr. Degani, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure being here.
Oh, so why did you choose to go to Pakistan? Can you tell us to begin with?
We chose to go to Pakistan because there's been all these things happening in Pakistan, earthquake, flood, whatever, plus the political turmoil. And it's a country which has a lot of need, and a lot of our donors are Pakistani, and they want to see Pakistan being serviced.
Mm-hmm.
I do volunteer work with the IDRF. My husband is on the board, so we tend to go together sometimes. And this time I was alone in rural Sindh.
Mm-hmm. So what's the particular need in this area in Sindh that you mentioned?
In Sindh, there's need for good medical care.
Mm-hmm.
But the main thing is in Sindh, what had happened, it was devastated by the floods. People had lost their homes. There is poor availability of water. It's building life from ground.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why we were in Sindh.
Mm-hmm. So what were you doing there?
Initially, what was this idea was to run a primary health care clinic in Jamshoro,
mm-hmm.
but that didn't work out because of some political problems or whatever, and so then I finally moved to Dadu, and that was a very nice setup, and everybody was wanting to do a good job.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this was quite nice that it's what people wanted to do. They wanted to really do what they were supposed to do and try and better themselves. So they were very, very receptive. If I would say, well, we need this, we need to do this way. For instance, the simple matter of keeping medical records on a day-to-day basis, they had very rudimentary, but at the Jamshoro clinic, they were totally, no, we are not part of it, but these people, oh yes, we will do it, and we will do. And if I would say that, you know, these are the needs and this is what we should do. And they were totally willing to do better.
So you were training people at a medical clinic then?
Yeah.
Okay.
While I was seeing patients, I would sort of,
mm-hmm.
any suggestions I would have, they would be very receptive.
Mm-hmm. So what is it like to volunteer in a developing country?
Where I volunteered is Afghanistan and Pakistan and Kosovo. Kosovo also we had been. This was after the war, and it was terrible there. So I find it a tremendous experience.
Mm-hmm.
I find I always come back richer than I've gone.
Mm-hmm. Is there some culture shock when you see the situation of people living there and compare it to what you have in Canada?
Oh, you know what? I'm originally from India.
Mm-hmm.
As I grew up, I've seen hardship, I've seen poverty, I've seen want, I've seen these things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't live in it now, but it doesn't shock me.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't shock me. It's just, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. So when you were in Pakistan, were you seen as one of them, as one of the people there, or were you seen as a Canadian, an outsider?
I tried my dress, I speak Urdu,
mm-hmm.
so it's easy. So I could communicate with them in their language. Though this time in Sindh they don't speak Urdu, they speak Sindhi.
Mm-hmm.
But there were people who could, but then they would identify me as a Muslim woman who was familiar with Muslim ethics and willing to meet them in their sphere.
Mm-hmm.
So they accepted me, and they were really very good to me.
Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit more about what you did in Pakistan. You also did some counseling as well.
Yes, I did. One of the things that came out of the flood relief was they wanted to have systems in place for, because the flood happened once, it can happen again. So they wanted to have systems in place for management of disaster. So they had, like, one of the things IDRF is doing is building a shelter. The other thing is how to manage first response in case of crisis for injury or whatever, cardiac arrest or anything, you know. They wanted to know, how are we to manage that? So they wanted me to take them through that. And the community leaders, so what was the thing is, we were, I was providing the training for the trainers. So these people would then go out and train other people also to build capability to manage disaster.
So tell us about IDRF and its water project. How is that related to the work that you were doing?
Well, IDRF, you know, water is, without water there's no life. So water is a basic necessity. Sindh is a desert and water is hard to get. So
how does that impact people's lives then? The fact
women
that it's hard to
would spend half a day just carting water to and fro.
Wow.
And we turn on our taps, we don't think anything of it. I mean, when is the last time we thought about wanting water? I guess our closest experience was when we had polluted water in in Ontario, and people had to have the boiled water alert.
Yes.
But it doesn't impact us.
So would you have to speak to them about sanitizing the water?
Yes,
How did you help
did
them?
actually. When I was training them, I did a whole demonstration on making whatever water was available portable and safe, because gastroenteritis amongst children is a killer, and it would be a chronic thing. So I've thought that was very important. So one of the things we did do was a demonstration on making whatever water you had pure, and there were steps to it. One was like sedimenting the dirt out with alum, and the other was then disinfecting with chlorine. So we did the whole demonstration for them.
So is this something that they could do by
Absolutely.
themselves? Is it
Absolutely.
expensive?
Yeah, it's not expensive.
Okay.
It may be a little time consuming, but it's not expensive. And that's why it was, in fact, one of their own people, who is a very bright young man, has in fact developed the whole but has written the whole process, and in English and Sindhi and all the languages they need. So all that was available to them. What I did is use what he gave me and just did a demonstration, so that they would see. Until you see something, you know, on paper, you don't know how it's going to work. So I thought it was very important to show them how simple it is, in fact.
So were they receptive to the idea?
They were quite receptive to the idea.
So for our watchers, can you explain why it's important to have clean water?
Clean
what
water.
sort of impact does it have on one's
It does
health
have
and one's life?
the biggest impact is on health. I mean, without clean water, you're going to catch every waterborne disease there is. So making water safe is a huge thing.
Yeah, and I was reading that in many parts of the world, diarrhea is a major cause of death for babies.
Gastroenteritis is an infant gastroenteritis. I mean, gastroenteritis is simply, why does it kill? It's the amount of fluid lost in either vomiting or stools, and you have to compare it to the size of the person. An infant is small. An infant will have 12 bowel movements, can get dehydrated. We may not be affected, but an infant is easily dehydrated, and that can be a killer.
So can you tell us how we can contribute to this project, how we can help IDRF?
IDRF, number one, is to actually increase the availability of water. So to have more water pumps. So IDRF has they have built shelters for the people, but they need some more funds to put in pumps, water hand pumps. And IDRF has put in some, and what I saw is they've done a really good job of it, because with the hand pump what they put is a washing pad, and what that does is allow the women to wash their clothes right there rather than having to cart the water home, wash it at home. They bring their laundry, wash their clothes, and then take it back to dry. So it is a really great setup.
So would you suggest that people contribute financially to that project? How can they help?
I absolutely think so. I absolutely think so. One of the things we found was, you know, and the water is also needed not only for sanitation and hygiene, but for livelihood. They can't grow crops. If there's no water, they cannot grow their food. So they need water for that. So water is vital. And provision of water is I cannot say how important.
All right.
Also the sanitation part of it, I think that's the education is how to separate your personal waste and not let it get into your water sources.
All right, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you for sharing your insights with us, Dr. Naeema Degani.
Thank you very much for having me here. It's been my pleasure.
Oh, you're welcome. And we'll take a break when we return. Hajj 101.